Hello.
Hi, my sheet. It's taking forever here at Superstore.
Okay, so I guess you won't be here.
No, I'm gonna come. I'm just gonna be a few minutes late.
Okay.
Yeah, is that okay?
It'll have to be.
Bye.
All fights and griffins. All fights and griffins. All fights and griffins.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. It's just the two of us now. More, make host. Now you should be able to unmute yourself also, since you're the host. Hi there.
Oh,
Gonna make me the co-host. It's interesting. Why did we all of a sudden lose all of the people that were in the waiting room?
no, you just can't see them. It tells me that there are 5 people in the waiting room.
Right, exactly, because I'm not. If you make me the co-host, I'll probably be able to see them.
All fights and griffins.
Okay, I'm making you the co-host. That's done. Start with the waiting room. Okay. Can you did you make me co-host?
I did.
So now I want to put on some nice music.
Mushka, please go away. Double. Mushka, don't stand there.
Here. Let's go to YouTube. And let's put on the Maccabeats One Day. That's too loud, Judy? Like that? Too loud?
Sometimes I lay under the
You're muted.
moon and thank God I'm breathing. And And I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life
Frozen for a while. Is the music too
Too
loud?
loud.
Too loud?
No, I'm on a 100.
Is the music good?
Lower it.
Lower it? And just turn it off completely?
No, just a lot lower.
It doesn't go much lower.
Maybe do a different song that is less intense. I'm gonna go live on Facebook, yeah?
Yeah, but it's time for us to almost change. It's 8:26. I gotta disable the meeting room. Is the music too loud now?
No.
Now it's okay. Can I admit
Yeah.
all?
Yeah.
Or what I'm gonna do is disable the waiting room so everybody will automatically be in, okay?
Yeah, but the chatting and whatever is all.
I did that already, yeah.
All right.
Hi everyone. Hi Sandy. So nice to see you. Hi Barry. We can't hear you, but I can see you. Hi Mr. Grant. Hi Sandra. Let's unmute Rabbi Bruk.
That's good.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Rabbi Bruk.
Okay, you can mute me again.
Oh, we didn't come to hear you. We came to hear your wife.
Just don't misbehave.
I'm never sure if
Sometimes I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. And I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. Oh, one day, one day, one day. It's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they feed on the souls of the innocent. Blood transparent, keep on moving though the water stay raging. In this maze you can lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it face you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. Oh, one day.
Good evening, everyone. This event, so nice to see all of your smiling faces. This event is once again being hosted by 4 Steiner brothers. Rebbetzin Yehuda Steiner and I, who direct Uptown Chabad, Rabbi Yudi and Rivki Steiner, who direct the Rohr Chabad Center at George Washington University, Rabbi Rafi and Musi Steiner of Chabad of Guelph, Rabbi Sruli and Chami of Uptown Chabad at Young and Shepherd. Welcome Torontonians, welcome Guelphites, Griffins, and welcome GW Colonials. The feedback that we got from Rabbi Bruk's lecture the other week was truly amazing. We got comments like, that was one of the funniest hours of my life. And people really took to heart the pearls of wisdom that Rabbi Bruk offered in his entertaining account. But people also wanted more. More, not just about the story of Chabad in Montana, but specifically the story that is unique to the Bruk family. And we are hoping that tonight's lecture will pick up where the last lecture left off. To introduce tonight's speaker, I will hand it over to Mrs. Musi Steiner, Chabad of Guelph.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. A few weeks, or more like a few months ago, I had the privilege of hearing Mrs. Chavi Bruk speak in Waterloo, Ontario, and all the women that were there just sat there completely spellbound and were walked away so inspired from Chavi's words. So I'm really excited to hear Chavi speak again tonight and to have her with us. Chavi Bruk was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. She's the co-CEO of Chabad Montana, of Bozeman's Mikvah Mei Chai Mushka, and of the Holocaust Museum of Montana. She lives in Bozeman with her husband, Rabbi Chaim, and her 5 adopted children. And thank you so much, Chavi, for joining us, and I really look forward to hearing you tonight. One just thing before Chavi starts is that if you have any questions throughout Chavi's talk, just type it in the chat throughout, like just as it comes up, and then at the end, all of your questions will be answered. So thank you and enjoy.
Okay, could you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a really great honor and pleasure. Just put something up here. Okay, so it's really quite intimidating to come speak after my husband. He's very funny. I'm not. So hopefully you'll enjoy the experience. It's going to be quite different. And we'll just get started. One night, I dreamed a dream. Do you hear me? Yeah, because it just asked me to unmute again. Okay. As I was walking along the beach with God, across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene I noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my God. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand, and I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why. When I need you most, you would leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you, and I will never leave you. Never, even during your trials and tests. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. This powerful poem has expressed for many the internal challenge we experience in our relationship with God. And it is with this that I begin my remarks this evening. My husband often walks around the house humming an old Yiddish melody, a Tata Bistu, with words in Yiddish that were composed in the 80s. And the song loosely translates as, Hashem, you are a trustworthy Father. Your love for us is unimaginable. Furthermore, says the Holy Baal Shem Tov, every Jew is like Hashem's only child. So does God care about me? Does he really hear our cries? Has he lost interest in us? And I think it's safe to say that people of all religious backgrounds, including Judaism, have often been chastised for asking questions about our relationship with God. Where do I fit him into my life when all is chaotic? Does he even still remember who I am? And if yes, why doesn't he answer my prayers? Tonight, I will address our spiritual schizophrenia and my recurring life theme, riding life's roller coasters, how to hang on, stay strong, and enjoy the ride. I'm not your average public speaker. I never took speaking classes, and I never dreamed of this as a young child. On the contrary, I'm on the quiet side, and my husband is a family talker, as you met. But yet, I share my personal story, our family journey with you this evening, as it is my sincere hope that it will shed light on the struggles so many of us face, and perhaps bring a new perspective on how to cope in our moments of uncertainty. I've been married for over 14 years. I'm a mother of 5, the oldest of 9, and an emissary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory to bring authentic Yiddishkeit, traditional Judaism to Montana's Big Sky. I'd like to take you back for just a moment and ask you to join me in traveling to Crown Heights, the Chabad Hasidic Haven in Brooklyn, New York. Rabbi Chaim and Rivki Block, my beloved parents who were married in 1983, gave birth to me, their first child, on July 25th, 1984. When I was 6 months old, the Rebbe of blessed memory entrusted my parents to represent him in the greater San Antonio community, where they've now served and created a renaissance of Jewish life since 1985. I attended Gan Gani, the preschool my parents founded, and for elementary school, my siblings and I enjoyed the EKA, our local Jewish day school, and for middle school and later high school, I left San Antonio and joined an incredible Chabad high school in the windy city of Chicago. For post-high school studies, I traveled to Israel and attended Beth Chana Institute of Higher Education in Tzfat. On New Year's Day of 2006, I was introduced through a mutual friend to a charismatic, funny, and wise yeshiva student from Brooklyn. His name was Chaim Bruk, and he hailed from a wonderful Chabad family in New York, where he was raised with his 4 siblings. 3 months later, on March 22nd, 2006, just a few miles from the Riverwalk and the Alamo, Chaim and I were married under the Texas sky. Like all our peers, the next thing on our agenda was to begin building our very own family. And of course, my parents were geared up and excited to become grandparents and welcome a promise to be their first grandchild. Our first year in New York was lots of fun. We enjoyed New York's kosher restaurants, spending time with Chaim's family. We traveled a ton and started planning for what would come next. In our case, the launching of a new frontier of Chabad Lubavitch, bringing the Rebbe's lifelong dream of inspiring, encouraging mitzvah observance, and uplifting our people in the Wild West. 1 year later, in March of 2007, on the morning after our first anniversary, Chaim and I boarded a flight from Newark to Minneapolis and on to Bozeman, Montana. With my in-laws and a few relatives and a couple of Chaim's friends waving from across the TSA checkpoint, we said goodbye to life as we knew it and embarked on our life's mission to the beautiful Jews of Montana, a place that had no traditional Judaism for over 150 years. Yeah, yes, as a couple, we were slightly anxious, uncertain about how everything would turn out, but we still held on to the hope that sooner or later we would be blessed with children. Our new Chabad Center was off to a great start, as we made remarkable inroads in the community. Jews of all flavors were joining our Shabbat dinners, holiday celebrations, and even Torah classes. They joined either because they were thirsting for something new and traditional, or because they found it amusing that a young Orthodox couple would move to Bozeman and wanted to know what that was all about. Yet behind the smiles and warmth, behind the day-to-day operations, behind those solidly shut doors, Chaim and I were worrying and agonizing. What's with those babies we wanted so much? Why am I not pregnant yet? Is it him? Is it me? Is it both of us? What shall we do? How many more times shall we buy pregnancy tests only to be heartbroken? Bozeman is like heaven on earth. It's picturesque with the most amazing quality of life. But without precious children on our laps, who will we enjoy it with? We couldn't even find a fertility specialist in our state, so for diagnosis and medical evaluation, we needed to travel. With the help of the amazing people at Bonei Olam, an organization devoted to Jewish couples struggling with infertility, we were introduced to the finest doctors in the field. And finally, in the spring of 2008, 2 years after our marriage, after undergoing an invasive medical procedure in New York, the doctor said to us, and I quote, "You are not going to have biological children. There is nothing else to do." It was devastating, It was heartbreaking, and we felt truly hopeless. I was 23, Chaim was 26, and no kids? What was Hashem thinking? Why us? And how could life continue? Can our marriage prosper under this harsh reality? This had the potential to destroy it all. We felt like spiritual schizophrenics. One day, we were fully on board with God, and on other days, we questioned everything. We'd read incredible stories about the power of going to the mikveh, of observing the precious laws of family purity, and the blessing it is to bestow upon all couples, especially those struggling with infertility. Yet me and Chaim, a couple who drives 7 hours each way every month, at times through treacherous winter storms to use the mikveh in Salt Lake City, Utah, we were told no children. Where's the blessing and where's God's justice? I tried to find comfort in the fact that the Lubavitcher Rebbe and his Rebbetzin, my cherished guides and role models, didn't merit biological children of their own. And in fact, our patriarchs and matriarchs, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Rachel, struggled with infertility. But it was a weak comfort, and it didn't give Chaim or I any solace, and we were distraught. Yet during the despair, in those untenable moments of sorrow, what Chaim and I discovered together is that there are moments in life that we merit seeing God, and others where we can't see him at all, but rely on our faith in him. Montana is beautiful, 24/7, 365 days a year. I welcome each of you to come out for a visit, spend the Shabbos with us in Bozeman, and you can see the miracle of nature for yourself. And the Talmud teaches us that when one gazes at nature, seeing the miracle of creation, when we see the miracles of medicine, which has come so far to help those in need of healing, or even watching a flower bud in your front yard, this is a clear sighting of God. Stand at Niagara Falls, or at our very own Old Faithful in Yellowstone. Gaze at the glaciers in Banff, deep in the Canadian Rockies, or the awesomeness of the Grand Canyon. At those moments, one doesn't need to believe in God. At those moments, God is right before your eyes. When we see God, when he's visibly apparent to us, it would be a crime to believe in him, as we're denying his very presence before us. It's when one is experiencing a permanent infertility diagnosis, when one is walking through a pediatric cancer ward, or when looking at the casualties of COVID-19, which has changed our lives in so many ways. So many of us find ourselves confused, feeling hopeless, and even depressed on occasion. It is then that we need to pull out something deeper, something essential, our faith card, as it is the unshakable faith that will allow us to survive and perhaps even thrive. It is that faith that will shine light in our very dark tunnel. So when we hear trigger words like, oh, we're expecting in November, or do you have any children yet? Or I'm sure it'll happen in the right time. It would awaken such raw emotion for us, but also for the countless souls, beautiful couples and individuals who are struggling, feeling alone and sad. It was in these moments of near anger or hopelessness that I turned to Chaim and I'd say, you've got to pull out the faith card again. We have no choice. So going back to our story, at the Knesset HaShluchim, the annual Chabad Rabbis Conference in the fall of 2008, while sitting in a Brooklyn show, Chaim ran into his old friend, Yossi from Moscow, Russia, and for the first time ever, he opened up about our pretty awful situation. His friend, visibly shocked, was comforting, but like most, wasn't sure exactly what to say. And before they parted ways, Chaim asked him to please think about us if any baby in need of an adoption ever comes his way. That night, Chaim attended an evening for the rabbis where they showed an unpublicized video in which the Rebbe encourages 2 women to adopt babies. He called me immediately, sharing with me the amazing, undeniable divine providence that just transpired. This year, when we're so lost, searching for a glimmer of light and hope, we merit to see this video, and we knew that adoption was meant for us. But the months dragged on. We looked into adoptions in Israel, Ukraine, and the US, but nothing panned out. We learned from the experts in the field of adoption of all the intricacies involved in the process, which were extremely overwhelming. The legalities and costs seemed unfeasible. We learned about the process and what the possibilities aren't, and we were simply lost. But on August 28, 2009, a little baby girl was born in a slum hospital outside of Moscow. A young Jewish mother gave birth to her child 7.5 months into her unexpected pregnancy. The baby weighed about 3 pounds and was not in good health, to say the least. Mom was scared and shocked. Her baby was hospitalized for over a month, hooked to a respirator, and underwent several surgeries related to her preemie status. This fighting baby miraculously survived the Russian medical care, but she still had a long road to full recovery, and the doctors encouraged the mom to take her to America for medical evaluation. The woman called Chaim's friend in Moscow for guidance. Yes, that same friend who Chaim had spoken to almost a year earlier at the New York conference. As loving souls, Yossi and his amazing wife Luba cared for this mother and her baby, and when the mom finally listened to the doctors and took her baby for medical evaluation in the States, they both traveled with her, leaving behind the entire family. During the long flight over and later while visiting the doctors, this young mom decided that she wants to give her baby to an adoptive family. They worked with her, spoke with her about the ramifications of her decision, but she was adamant to have her baby adopted. At that point, Chaim's friend called and said, "Chaim, do you remember that conversation you had with me last year? Are you still interested in adoption?" After overcoming immense challenges, finally, on the brightest Tuesday morning of our lives, on November 10th, a little over 10 years ago, sitting in a gas station in a small town in New Jersey, we got the call that was almost 4 years in the making. It was like getting a call directly from God. It was the adoption agency. "Rabbi Bruk, you and your wife can come now and get your beautiful baby." And we sure did. It was that beautiful morning that Chaya made me a mommy and Chaim an Abba. The gift of adoption is something most people can't relate to, as it's an experience like no other. While Chaim and I don't know what it's like to have a biological child, we do know how amazing it is to have an adoptive child. It was on that Tuesday morning that it became crystal clear to me that God is with us and guiding us and loving us and running the entire show. So you see, when it rains, it pours, and just a few months after Chaya's adoption, he received a call from a rabbi in Hoboken, New Jersey, about another potential adoption. So on Shemini Atzeret, less than 1 year after Chaya came into our life, our second daughter, Zisi, was born. As Zisi was born a few weeks early, we were in Texas celebrating the holiday when we got a fax. Those existed back then. And the fax said, "It's a girl." As it was a 3-day holiday, the anxiety was palpitating, and it was Chaim's younger sister and brother who actually picked Zisi up immediately after the holiday. And we met Zisi for the very first time the next morning at Enterprise Rent-A-Car at Newark Airport. How many parents can say that they met their baby for the first time in Newark Airport? When my mother-in-law, Chanchi, asked Chaim, "Why the rush to adopt a second child so soon?" And my husband responded, "Ma, I thought you taught us that we don't believe in family planning." She laughed, and don't worry, she never asked again. In September of 2010, when we adopted our second child, Zisi, all seemed well enough. She and Chaya, our oldest at the time, had lots of fun playing together and cracking each other up in their adjacent cribs. We read books together, they enjoyed swimming lessons, and we frolicked in the outdoors that is a hallmark of Big Sky Country. Then, one beautiful Sunday morning in the fall of 2011, just after Zisi's first birthday, everything changed. Zisi was sitting in her high chair, Chaim was feeding her breakfast, and she was jolly as usual, when suddenly her head dropped and she started experiencing what seemed like an epileptic seizure. My husband screamed on top of his lungs to come from upstairs, and in pajamas, holding Zisi tight with our 2-year-old Chaya in the back seat, Chaim drove like a New York maniac and got us to the ER within 6 minutes of her seizure. While I held Zisi for the initial intervention and attempted diagnosis, Chaim immediately called our local team of medical friends, which included a local Jewish OBGYN who's a dear member of our shul, and Zisi's angel-like pediatrician who knew our kids from the moment they were adopted. The doctor started blood work and CT scans and MRIs and all the routine tests you do for a kid who had some type of neurological episode. We eagerly awaited their results, which all came back inconclusive. Zisi's young and precious brain didn't really show any of the expected abnormalities associated with epilepsy, and they shrugged it off by saying, "Sometimes kids get seizures and it just doesn't come back." But time passed, and it was evident to both me and my husband that something wasn't right. Zisi was slow with her expected milestones. Walking, talking, potty training all took slower than usual. And so we decided to schlep to our big city Billings to see a visiting neurologist. And he too was adamant that ZC's developmental delays were all behavioral, not neurological, and that the seizures and her slow development were totally unrelated. But we didn't buy it. And you may ask why? Why can't you just let her progress at her own pace and let it go? But here's why. Every day or two, ZC would have a total meltdown. Not the conventional tantrums or crying meltdowns that all kids have. These would last about an hour and a half. She would black out. She couldn't hear us. She wasn't consolable, and her crying disrupted our entire household. We knew this wasn't behavioral. Something wasn't right, and we were determined to figure it out. Parenting is hard enough. Every self-help book, every parenting magazine, and most importantly, our deep and wise Jewish traditions all give us so much direction on how to raise children, how to speak to them, interact with them, react to them, but nothing teaches you what to do with the unknown. How are we to help our beloved child when no experts know what's going on and what to do? It was so scary. Should we continue to search for medical answers? Is this genetic? Did her biological parents have this too? Should we fly out of state for a secondary consultation? Will insurance cover it? If not, can Chaim pull together the funds needed for this? A classmate of mine with a special needs child told me of a pediatric neurology center in New Jersey where she had taken her son for an evaluation and who she thought was really good. So in November of 2014, I boarded a flight out of Bozeman with 4-year-old ZC, and we headed to Cherry Hill, New Jersey for a 3-day evaluation appointment. The primary neurologist was a remarkable Hungarian doctor who in 2 short days concluded, without a shadow of a doubt, that ZC isn't sleeping at night, though it may seem like she is. Her brain is unstable, and most importantly, her meltdown episodes, those crying hours, are actually seizures which are impacting ZC's development. The Talmud teaches that there is no greater joy than the removal of doubt and the advent of clarity. But this clearness was a double-edged sword. So we sort of knew what was going on, but a new world of challenge was opened at that very moment. We headed back to from New Jersey in a daze, and the doctors wanted her to undergo genetic testing to confirm her form of epilepsy. So indeed, we traveled to Billings where she underwent a spinal tap that, together with a $22,000 genetic test done at Shoder Hospital, to the dismay of the insurance company, confirmed that ZC has a rare genetic disorder called GLUT1 deficiency. It's crystal clear that our dear ZC, this special soul, neshama, entrusted to us along with our other children, has a disorder that only 500 people worldwide have been diagnosed with. So what is GLUT1? And I quote, GLUT1 syndrome is a genetic disorder that impairs brain metabolism. Glucose isn't transported properly into the brain, leaving it starving for the energy it needs to grow and function. GLUT1 deficiency causes an array of symptoms. Some signs and symptoms may include seizures, movement disorders, speech and language disorders, and developmental delays. There is no cure for GLUT1. The current standard of care is a ketogenic diet, which helps improve most symptoms for most patients by giving the brain an alternate source of energy and helps optimize brain growth and development. So we read that online, and all we could think was, oh my gosh. So she was already being treated with speech therapy and occupational therapy and physical therapy. She was already taking medication for seizures. What is this ketogenic diet, and what are we up against? Do we even have the strength to deal with this new reality? Do we have what it takes to care for ZC and give her what she needs while giving our other children what they need? Like a camel that can only carry a load that matches its strength, the Talmud teaches that God doesn't give us any more than we can handle. Yet, we wondered, is God placing too much trust in us? I pondered, can I really handle this? How can we parent when all parenting norms were thrown out the window? So this new ketogenic diet is a high-fat, moderate protein, and low-carb diet that causes the body to produce and burn ketones for fuel in the absence of glucose. These ketones can act as an alternative fuel source, and the energy they provide can help alleviate some of the symptoms of GLUT1 deficiency and help supply better nourishment for the developing brain. In simple English, it's a pain in the you-know-what. ZC can only eat meals that we prepare and measure, especially for her each week. Only certain ingredients are permitted, and it doesn't include any food that kids normally like. She can't even eat out at a restaurant or at anyone else's home. And when we travel, and we do often, at least we used to, We have to bring all her food along. Chaim or I travel with her every couple months to Children's Colorado Hospital, where they monitor her progress with lots of blood work, psychoanalysis, and testing galore. So how does one cope when your little cute, cuddly toddler is struggling with her health and creating such a burden on the family? And the answer is parenting with God. I wouldn't be able to get through these moments if I didn't recognize that Zizi is a gift from God, as each child is. I wouldn't be able to get through the day if I didn't believe that each of my children was meant for me and that I'm 100% capable of giving them everything they need. The good news is that Zizi's diet is working well, and while she has a lifelong of challenges ahead of her, she's developing beautifully as she plays catch up for all the years she wasn't energized properly. So those two kiddos were just a year apart and were a lot to handle, but my dream of having a home full of kids never ceased. Yet in the world of adoption, like in most things in life, you can want all you want, but that doesn't mean it will happen on your timeline. And so then it happened. It was a morning after Simchat Torah of 2012, when Chaya was 3 and Zizi 2, Chaim receives a phone call from another friend that asked if we're looking to adopt another child, and if yes, would we be open to a Black, or to be more exact, a biracial child. Chaim and I deliberated and discussed the ins and outs of raising a Black Orthodox child in Montana, no less, and decided we were all in. So in April of 2013, just after Passover, we adopted our third child, Menny. Menny's adorable, on the very wild side, and sharp as a tack. He's really hard to keep up with, and he cracks us up all the time. He's also started asking questions about his race. When he was 4, he told my husband that he wants to be white. During the conversation, my husband took out his phone and started showing him pictures of famous Black people. His response was priceless. To the picture of President Obama, he said, "He's not Black." But to the picture of Oprah, he said, "Okay, she's Black." It's the funny observations out of the mouth of a now 7-year-old that keeps us smiling. But more recently, about 6 months ago, he asked us at the dinner table, and I quote, "Are there still people in this world who don't like Black people?" And it forces us to chat about the tough subjects and realities of life in a productive and healthy way. It's uniquely interesting because while most Jews aren't racist, many aren't used to seeing Black like Chabadniks in shul. It is different, but different shouldn't scare us. It should be an opportunity to be more embracing, more compassionate, and more open-minded. A few years back, while our daughter Chaya was taking a bath on Martin Luther King Day, she spoke about what she had learned about Martin Luther King in school. She then quipped, "Mom, I'm so grateful for Martin Luther King." And I asked her, "Oh, tell me why." And she said, "If Martin Luther King didn't have a dream, Menny wouldn't be able to be my brother." Raising a Black child, especially with today's tense race relations in the United States, is a tough balancing act. Menny knows bits and pieces about what's going on, and he's very perceptive. So we explain to him as best as we can to a 7-year-old that sadly, racism still exists in some circles, and it's abhorrent. But at the same time, remind him that the fact that he's adopted by white parents, the fact that he goes to a mostly white school where he's treated like a superstar, and the fact that we've had a Black president for 8 years are all positive signs of the progress that has been made. Yet, we are also very careful not to dictate for him what that Black experience should look like for him, as we aren't Black and don't know how it is to be seen that way. It's part of who he is that he should cherish, embrace, and as he gets older, figure out how to relate to it in a way that suits him best. In August of 2016, a lovely 12-year-old girl, Courtney, joined our Camp Gun Israel. Her mom had died tragically when she was 5 years old, and her dad, who loved her a lot, didn't raise her with the stability that each precious child deserves. After spending 2 weeks in our home and loving her time with our family, she didn't want to leave. Although she did head home to Wyoming, in her mind, Bozeman was where she wanted to stay. Chaim and I had adopted 3 babies before, but Courtney, a preteen, unlike babies, they come with a long history of baggage that affects their every day, their every thought, and their every emotion. Courtney was placed by God at our doorstep, and we needed to answer God's call. I know God would have understood if he would have said, sorry, we just can't. We aren't cut out for this. But we knew it was our calling, and we said yes. Courtney is child number 4. She's an amazing, talented, smart, and fun young woman, and she will undoubtedly grow to boundless heights. Does that mean she's always easy? Not in the slightest. Does she have a lot to repair internally? She'd be the first to say so. But does she have a glowing soul that is in love with Judaism, and is she a remarkable older sister to Chaya Zisi Ameni? You bet. She chose her own Jewish name, Shoshana Yael, as she felt like she's a Shoshana, a rose plucked from amongst the thorns, and like Yael in the book of Judges, she's a warrior fighting for a better life for herself. When adopting Shoshana, it was odd for Chaya, as she was not the oldest anymore, and yet she's still our first child. But these issues are addressed and add to the novelty of our family that we've allowed Hashem to create for us. Our warrior Shoshana had a lot more to sift through than we imagined, but her journey has changed us for the better. From her adoption in 2016 through the school year of 2018, Shoshana attended our local public school while supplementing her Jewish studies with her daily online tutor. Keeping her close to her new family was the right thing to do and gave her time to blend in with her new parents and siblings. In September of 2018, the beginning of the new school year and her high school, with the support of her unbelievable therapist, we sent Shoshana off to a conventional Chabad high school in Florida. But after a few months, it became clear that her unhealthy behavior patterns were a reflection of undeniable deeper wounds that would have been an immense burden on an adult, how much more so on a young growing soul. With the guidance of friends and mentors, in March of 2019, less than a little over a year ago, we did something radical. We sent Shoshana to a wilderness therapy program in southern Utah, where for 4 months she lived with 7 other girls and a few staff in the desert. No bathrooms, no kitchen, no technology, no clocks, no cabins, not even tents, no showers, all natural. You go to sleep when the sun sets, you wake up when the sun rises, you hike 9 to 12 miles each day and enjoy the beautiful country. It was a nurturing environment, but one that forced Shoshana and the other girls in the encampment to look inwards and deal with their raw self, and shared that with the staff and her fellow peers. It was phenomenal. Initially, she was furious, naturally, but today she will tell you that although not an easy experience, the time in the wilderness gave her foundational tools that can be used to change the trajectory of her life. After graduating from Wilderness on July 1st, we transferred her to a girls' therapeutic academy where the focus is equine therapy, working with the horses who, like the girls, experience trauma. Together, the girls and their horses work through their trauma and grow in that healing process. Shoshana's horse is named Roman. He's a cutie, and they certainly have their work cut out for them. Chaim and I don't know how this story will end for Shoshana, or any of our kids for that matter, but I do know that we are giving her the best possible tools for her progress and success into the future. If these 4 didn't keep us busy enough, 2.5 years ago, Chaim got a call from a woman in Montana, and yes, on August 18th, 2017, we adopted our beloved Chanalea, named for Chaim's mom, who passed at the young age of 54 back in 2010. When I wake up to my children each morning, I pause, and I remember how blessed I am, and I remember that we can't decide what life will bring us. We can only decide how we will respond to what's sent our way. It may be harsh to recognize that we don't control our children's outcomes, but it's also really liberating. We are meant to do the work, persevere through the tiring days and sleepless nights, and after all that, to live life without any expectations for particular results. We are to cherish the work, the growth and progress made within ourselves and with our children in those many moments, and not allow the purity be tainted by our own agenda. Don't misunderstand me. There are enormous hardships we experience almost every day. Each child has their personal needs, and navigating the process and figuring out what each one needs and what is best suited for them is a full-time job. Do they need attachment therapy or behavioral therapy? Do they need a specialized school or just special assistance within the regular schools? Do they need a psychologist or psychiatrist? All of this is extremely stressful. And all of these unique needs are in addition to the constant stress of operating a Chabad center in a place with a small populace of Jews, which makes getting a minyan paying the bills, and giving our children a Jewish education really hard. But it's not about the what Hashem places before us, but rather about how we're going to respond to it. God is not my personal ATM machine. I've tried it. He doesn't unload cash to me just because I punched in what I think are the right code numbers. Not that God can't. He could, of course. But he doesn't want us to be spiritual, physical, or material freeloaders. He wants us to do the heavy lifting, as it makes us better people, better spouses, and better parents. And he will give us what we need when we need it. I get it, why some parents who struggle, who see their children suffer in any way, can turn their back on God. I get it. It hurts so much. They don't think there's another option. I don't judge them. I just disagree, because it is with God's love, God's care, and God's Torah guidance, and how to see each day and each child as a gift that I'm able to fight on to give all my children what I hope to be a great life. It's even more than faith. It's trust. Trust is a potent formula. When we ask for God's blessings of good and place our total trust in him, it has the ability to, the spiritual power to actually create that reality. Do I ever question God? Of course I do. So did Abraham and Moses and Jeremiah and King David and all our Jewish heroes and heroines. Only someone that believes in God can question him. If he doesn't exist and he means nothing to me, I wouldn't bother conversing with him. Precisely because I love him, because I'm in awe of him, because I know he guided us to our 5 miracles, I wonder why the mystery. Why can't it be a bit more straightforward? My questions and hours of thinking don't take away my faith in him, it strengthens it. I struggle often. Life is full of struggles. Escaping them doesn't really work. Overcoming them is always possible with a lot of inner courage. And I share this all because each of us encounters challenges in our lives. Life is hard. Everyone has a story. And I can state unequivocally that God is an operator par excellence. And when we are meant to transition from a place of impossibilities to a place of revealed good, it will happen like a blink of an eye. Don't give up. He will not fail you. I love this quote from Dr. Seuss. It's my favorite. Life's too short to wake up with regrets. So love the people who treat you right, forgive the ones who don't, and believe that everything happens for a reason. If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said it'd be easy. They just promised it would be worth it. And I want to leave you with this last story. Once upon a time, a daughter complained to her father that her life was miserable and that she didn't know how she was going to make it. She was tired of fighting and struggling all the time, and it seemed like just as one problem was solved, another one soon followed. Her father, a chef, took her to the kitchen. He filled 3 pots with water and placed each on a high fire. Once the 3 pots began to boil, he placed potatoes in one pot, eggs in the second pot, and ground coffee beans in the third pot. He then let them sit and boil without saying a word to his daughter. The daughter moaned and impatiently waited, wondering what he was doing. After 20 minutes, he turned off the burners. He took the potatoes out of the pot and placed them in a bowl. He pulled the eggs out, placed them in a bowl, and he ladled the coffee out and placed it into a cup. Turning to her, he asked, "Daughter, what do you see?" "Potatoes, eggs, and coffee," she hastily replied. "Look closer," he said. "Touch the potatoes." She did, and noted that they were soft. He then asked her to take an egg and break it. After pulling off the shell, she observed the hard-boiled egg. Finally, he asked her to sip the coffee. Its rich aroma brought a smile to her face. "What does this mean?" she asked. He then explained that the potatoes, the eggs, and the coffee beans had each faced the same adversity, the boiling water. However, each one reacted differently. The potato went in strong, hard, and unrelenting, but in the boiling water, it became soft and weak. The egg was fragile with a thin outer shell protecting its liquid interior until it was put in the boiling water. Then the inside of the egg became hard. However, the ground coffee beans were unique. After they were exposed to the boiling water, they changed the water and created an aromatic, delicious beverage. "Which one are you?" he asked his daughter. "When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a potato, an egg, or a coffee bean. And I conclude with a heartfelt prayer that all those who are experiencing challenges with childbirth, child rearing, or my life in general, who know the pain of raising children physically or spiritually, should merit the inner strength to deal with their journey and merit along with our people the coming of Mashiach now. Thank you.
Wow, Chavi, that was amazing. Thank you so much. We've got a lot of questions, and if anybody has any more questions, please just send them in. So I'll start with the first question. Did you force Shoshana to go to the wilderness camp?
Did we force her?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a really good question. Thank God she went on her own with her own 2 feet. But if she would have refused to have gone, there is a service that these wilderness schools do provide where they come and pick up your child. It really was a matter of almost life and death, so it's something that we really needed to happen. Thank God she did agree to go. She wasn't happy about it, but we didn't have to force her. So I flew with her to Utah. She was picked up by the school, and then I flew straight back. But she did go, and we didn't have to tie her up and drag her.
Okay. Are you able to show us a picture of your family?
Yes. Just trying to think the best way to do that.
Oh.
Are you gonna be able to see if I hold up my phone? Would that work, you think?
It might. Yeah.
Okay, so give me a second.
Okay.
Okay, so ask me another question while I find it, and I'll show it when I have it.
Okay. We met your husband last week. Can you tell us what it's like to be married to such a bubbly man? How did your relationship impact your journey?
Ooh, getting to the good stuff. How is it to? It is a ball of fun. It really keeps life interesting. But I'm a tough cookie. I hold my own. I'm really the one that's in charge, if anyone had any doubts. Oh, I didn't answer the last part, right? About how it impacted our journey. I think because both of us have a really strong personality and we're really kind of stubborn also, that sometimes that can get in the way. But when you come across a lot of challenges in your life, those kinds of personalities and convictions can be really helpful. So I think we use that energy to make us closer and band together, and thank God it didn't separate us and split us apart. So it was like this really great energy because we both were really strong in our faith and our belief. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Okay. What does Manny know about the current unrest?
Okay. So kids are smart. They pick up on energy, right? They don't even have to know very much. They just know that there's an energy in the air. So we told him what happens, in a appropriate way for his age. And you can see like his face was like really distraught, and he had to take time to process. And I didn't push because kids will let you know what they're ready to handle and what they can handle by the questions that they ask. So he really just took the time to process. And I told him, I said, Manny, if you have any questions or you have any thoughts or anything is scaring you, you know that you can always come to us. And I know that he does feel that because he will ask random questions about, like I said, like, do people not like Black? He was like, when he asked that question, he was kind of like in disbelief. He was like, does it really happen that people don't like you because of your skin color? And I think it was shocking to him because although he lives in a predominantly white, a white family, and Bozeman is wonderful and loving and kind, but we're not diverse. We're a white community through and through. I can count on my hands how many Black people are in the city. So, you know, he's surrounded by white people, but he never really felt discriminated against. So I think he was really kind of, so I asked, when he asked me that question, I actually asked him, I said, well, why are you asking me that? And he said, well, a girl in my class said that her dad doesn't like Black people. So that was his encounter. And I said, well, how did that make you feel? And he's like, I don't know, like this girl likes me, so I couldn't care less what her dad thinks, you know. He wasn't, you know, at that point extremely bothered by it. But I think it's really important to, the most important thing is that for your kids to know that any question is welcome. We're not going to be scared of the hard questions. We're going to be able to hold their feelings. And he continues to ask when he's ready and when he's, you know, wanting to know something in particular. Okay.
Well, while we're,
tell me if you can see.
Bring it closer.
Could you bring it a little closer?
Oh, screen share. Oh, well, there's one. Yeah. There you go. That's about 2 years ago, but that's a good one.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to close the door again. Oh, wow, there's a lot of pictures here.
Here. I don't see.
The research team has found the pictures.
Okay, awesome. You know, when I do this in person, I have a whole slideshow, and so we're just, you know, we do the best we can from afar.
Yes. Okay, while we're on this topic, the next question. Many feel the Jewish community has racist feelings. You are in a unique position. Do you find it to be true? Do you find your feelings on the issue changed when you adopted many?
Okay, wow, there's so many facets to this question. I'm gonna try to answer it in order. So do I feel that many Jews are racist? I don't. I feel that many people not choose to be, or not as informed necessarily, or as involved with race relations. And so to some people that feels that that's racist because it maybe isn't showing enough care. But I think it's sometimes we just get comfortable in our lives, and if something's not shoved right in front of our face, we don't think about it. When we're forced to think about things when there's this huge unrest or when something terrible happens, and then we are forced to think about the bigger picture. And I don't think that makes anybody a bad person. I just think that's human nature. God built us to move on, to get distracted, to get engrossed in our day-to-day life, and that's reality. These huge events sometimes is a God's way of sending us a message like, okay, we can do better, right? So do I think there's some Jews that are racist? Yes, there's some humans that are racist. Do I think that Jewish people as a whole are racist? No. Do I think we can do better? Can we be more sensitive? Can we be more aware of the intricacies involved in race? Yes. Did that change when I adopted many? Not really. We've been really blessed with acceptance wherever we are, whether we go to Crown Heights or we're in Bozeman or we're traveling. Nobody really, you know, people might be whispering behind our back. I don't know. I don't pay attention. I really feel like when what you put out into the world, that's what you get back. So if you are walking with your family and you're not acting embarrassed or timid or uncomfortable, then nobody's going to be uncomfortable around you. You know, if you're acting uncomfortable, then people are going to be uncomfortable. So it's really important so in regards to my family and to many, this is just our normal life. We don't even think twice about it. And I think people adapt to that energy. So in general, I think we always can do better. This is the human condition. We're always striving to do better. We're never, you know, oh, I made it. I'm this perfect human being, right? Or else we wouldn't be alive. If we're alive in this world, that means we have work to do. And that can be in all areas. And some people have more work to do in this area and some people in that area. And so just really important to look within yourself and be honest with yourself and ask yourself, where could I do better?
Okay. Can you recall an incident that either you, Manny, or your other children felt out of place, or that never happened?
Honestly, not really. My kids are very comfortable and proud of who they are. We make it a point this is something that is part of their lives from the very beginning. To the point where my daughter Chaya went to sleepaway camp, and my nieces were there, and my niece called her mother, which is my sister-in-law, and said, Chaya's walking around and telling everybody she's adopted. And so my sister-in-law was like, okay. And then she called me to tell me the story, and I'm like, this is her story. And she feels really comfortable to share it, and she likes to share because it's a part of her and she wants people to know that about her. It makes her feel more comfortable. And so I really feel like I've never really experienced being uncomfortable. I would have to ask my kids, but I don't remember as a family ever feeling uncomfortable or judged or less than.
Michael Grant had a great question. I'm going to unmute him, and he's going to ask it himself because it was good.
Okay.
1 second.
See if I can find you on here.
Okay, 1 second. We'll unmute him. Maybe
I'm unmuted.
Hi.
Thank you very much. I actually have 2 questions. I hope I can sneak both of them in. Thank you for a fascinating talk. I really appreciate everything you've said tonight. In 45 years of my work in adoption, both as a researcher and as a clinician, I've found that the acceptance by extended family has a significant effect upon the adoptee's sense of acceptance and legitimacy in the family. I'm curious, did your extended family, especially the children's adoptive grandparents, I actually don't even like saying it that way, I prefer to simply say their grandparents, welcome the kids and treat them as their legitimate grandchildren, or did they see them as something different than their biological grandchildren?
So it's a really excellent question, and I'm so pleased to be able to say that we are blessed with the best family. My husband's side and my side, like it wasn't even a thing. Like I'm sure that they all had to process when we told them that we were adopting, and when we told them that it was happening, and then we went and adopted a black child, and then we went and adopted a 12-year-old. Like we really kept them on their toes. They never ever made us feel like this was a bad idea. I'm sure they had to process that on their own time, and I'm sure they did that, but they did not involve us in that process. And I think you're 100% right. It makes all the difference in the world. And they are the best. They are treated and not treated. They're looked as one of the gang, the same as all the other grandchildren. My kids are so close to their cousins and their grandparents, and there's never once been a situation where I felt like, oh my gosh, we're being treated differently. And so, I know that that's not the story for everybody, and I am constantly grateful for my family and for the way that they embraced our journey and embraced our family, and to the point where it's not even a thing. It's like, these are their grandchildren. It's not at all a question.
Thank you. You're very, very fortunate, I must say.
I know. I do not. It doesn't go unnoticed because I have a lot of adoptive families that we're friends with, and it's not the same for everybody.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'm curious, do you and your children have any relationship with the children's birth family? And if not, will you help your kids to find their birth kin and reconnect with them at some future time in their lives?
Okay, that's a really good question. So with 5 adopted children, they each have their own unique story. So some of them are completely closed adoptions where we have no contact at all. Some have like milestone or monthly or yearly updates with pictures. And my daughter Shoshana she was adopted when she was 12, so she has full contact with her birth father. So it varies for each child. And I get that question a lot about, are you gonna help your kids find their adoptive parent if they so wish, and how does that make you feel? It's my job as a parent to support my kids in what they need and in what they need to feel whole, complete, and healthy. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. Whatever I feel about it, that is my job to work through and not put that on my children. So when it arises, and I'm sure it will, out of the 5 of them, I'm sure it's gonna happen, that they are going to be interested in searching and finding more about their birth family, it is my job to help them 100% do that and support them in that. And will it feel uncomfortable for me? Probably, but it's not really relevant. And I think I've already started that process, and I have many years to work on that and know that them finding their birth family on my role, feel confident with that. So I do foresee that happening, and I do completely support them in that journey.
I wholeheartedly support you. The research shows unequivocally that the unique story of each child that needs to be played out at some point in further relationships in their life leads to the success of the adoption. It's not something to be feared. It's something to be nurtured, and I congratulate you.
Yeah, we had an interesting story. My son, we adopted from birth, and we stayed at a family's house where he was adopted, and literally last year, she contacted me and she said, you know, I feel really uncomfortable and I didn't really know how to tell you this, but I have a blanket and a book that Manny's birth mom left for him, and I just never felt comfortable giving it to you. And I was cleaning my house and I found it, and do you want it? I'm like, of course I want it, send it. And so she sent it, and then for his 6th birthday, we gave it to him, and we told him that we just got this, and this is from his birth mom, and this is her favorite book, and this is a blanket that she gave for you. And he just ate it up. He loved it. And anyone who'd walk into the door, he'd pick up the blanket, he goes, this is from my birth mom. And he just felt so loved, and he felt, and that doesn't take away from our experience as his parents. That just allows us to provide him to feel that he's loved by one more person. How could that be bad?
Thank you.
Last call. If anybody has a question, please send it in. And how do you give your kids a Jewish education in Bozeman?
Oh, dun, 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 dun. Okay, so our kids actually do attend our local schools. So Hanalea, who's 2, is in a Montessori preschool, and all our other kids go to public school. They do get supplemented with online tutors for their Jewish education. And it was another decision that we had to make that went against the norm and has a possibility to be judged for, but we really had to look deeply and see what was best for our family. And with the guidance of our mentors and our rabbis, like, we didn't make this decision alone, but our children have all really high, unique needs. And I said, I'm like, listen, it is hard enough being their mom. I have zero interest in being their teacher. So they go to public school. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. We live in a small town, so our public schools are kind of like private schools, and the teachers are amazing. They get all the supplements and the care that they need. And it is hard to have a double curriculum and to be responsible for their Jewish education, but we do our best. And hopefully by the time they get married, they'll read Hebrew. That's our goal.
One second.
Are you concerned that many will have a uniquely difficult time in Jewish high school or yeshiva because he looks so different? Or are you confident with the Jewish community?
Both. I am concerned because I don't have my head in the sand. I know that, that could be challenging, and I don't know that every single person that encounters him will treat him with respect. I also have a lot of faith in the Jewish community and think that he will be okay. So I think that, in general, he's going to be okay. I also think that he is. If he goes to a big city like Chicago or New York, or he's going to have some challenging situations as he's going to have to deal with. It really doesn't help to put a lot of energy into that right now because there's nothing I can do about it. The only thing I can do is, as much as I can, instill in him the confidence and the healthy self-esteem and what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever, that the confidence that he knows who he is, he's comfortable with who he is, and when someone is if someone's bullying him or being unkind to him, he understands that is that person's problem, and that person is probably suffering and having or bullied themselves and doesn't know how to deal with it, so they turn around and bully somebody else. So I hope that that's what he takes away from that, and he can be strong and comfortable and know that when someone's nasty to him, it's not about him. And I will do a lot of praying because it's not in my control. And I tell God all the time, I'm like, hey, these are your kids just as much as they're mine. So you got to take care of them. There's only so much I can do, and you got to look after them. So I put some of the responsibility on God.
Okay, thank you. That was great. Next question. What is your top parenting tip?
Ooh, okay. I actually have a lot things that I work on. I don't have tips and I don't have advice because everything I say is something that I'm working on myself. It's not like I've mastered it. But one of the things that I've learned mostly through Shoshana's journey is letting go of control and understanding that my kids all are going to have their journey, and I need to let that happen. And I can't control their outcomes. I can't control who they're going to be when they're older. I can't control if they're happy, if they're not happy. All I can do is provide for them a safe environment and place for them to land and to feel comfortable being themselves and who they are, but I can't control what's going to happen. And that has been a huge challenge for me because I like to control things and I like to know what's going to happen, and I like to, provide. I want my kids to be happy, and I want, and I guess I can't do it. It's their journey and it's their stuff, and I can't own all their stuff. I just have to do the best that I can. So that is one of my favorite things to really take into account. And the other thing is connection. Kids, everything is based on connection. So the more you can foster that connection, the more confident they'll be and the more prepared they'll be for the world. So when your kid is acting out, it's usually because they need connection. So I'm trying, I fail a lot at it, but I'm trying every time my kids misbehave, not consequencing and not, laying down the law. It's like, oh, why is he behaving? How can I provide that connection that he's lacking? And that is why he's acting out, or she. So those are my two things I'm toying with right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Those were great advice. And the next one, what was it like naming your biracial son Manny after the Rebbe?
Oh, that's such a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Of all the talks that I've done, that was a good original one. Okay, so yes, he's named Menachem Mendel, but my husband and I were like, as much as he is named Menachem Mendel, and I believe that is a huge honor, it just needed to be a little different. So that's why we nicknamed him Manny, because it's just a little unique twist to the name, even though there are other Mannys around, but it's not as common. And I'm like, this unique child needs to have a little bit of a unique twist to the name. And so we did kind of play around with that, and still completely embrace and love the fact that he's named Menachem Mendel. We needed to do it in our own way.
Amazing. Okay, I am looking here if I have any more questions, but if there's anyone that has a question, please send that in because I'm not seeing any new ones right here. So send them in if you have a question. Let's wait a minute. Really? Okay, I will ask Srili Steiner, Rabbi Srili. I'm going to unmute you to conclude.
Okay, Mrs. Bruk, Rebbetzin Bruk, that was unbelievable.
I'm definitely not a Mrs.
Tonight, can you hear us? Yes.
Yeah.
We heard so much tonight, and the lessons are many. I was gonna say, I told my wife after your husband's talk. I just want to look at Mrs. Bruk. After your husband's talk, the last time around, I said, I kind of wrote off all of his happy-go-lucky spirit with, oh, they're living in Bozeman, Montana, and they're just shooting hoops and eating cotton candy and doing nothing all day. So that's why they're so happy, you know, as a way to just like deal with that. But hearing the whole story today and all the nuances, and it's really both your husband's humor and his perspective and his way of dealing with this, and your inspiration and your perseverance and your determination together, and your personalities. It's truly inspiring and unbelievable to see this. And
I want to add that, Chavi, you're really an inspiration, and I follow you on Instagram. And everybody should go do it. And I also like your blog. So.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I have a blog. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's called clearasmud.blog, because life is as clear as mud, as you can tell.
Okay, so we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to take in and a lot of lessons to be learned. And it's so kind of you to share your experience with all of us to be able to learn from it. We wish you and your family the best, and keep on going. Yasher Koach. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody who joined us tonight. And hopefully we'll see you around in the near future.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play.
No.
I can sing, but I'm not sure it's going to come across tonight.
Go for it.
It's almost done.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. See you on the other end.
Is this available recorded?